August 26, 2010 is Women's Equality Day, and it marks the 90th year that American women have held the right to vote. The foundation of our democracy is rooted in the right of all its citizens to vocalize their opinions and influence government through their vote. Today, women and men of all races, religion, and economic backgrounds are bonded in their ability to vote. But these groups were not always bonded in this way. Indeed, for many, the struggle to secure the right to vote was a long and arduous one. American women's struggle to achieve suffrage was the making of over 70 years of hard work, dedication, organization, failures, and ultimate success. It culminated in the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which enfranchised all American women on August 26, 1920. It is vital to note, however, that many women, particularly those living in western states, had already won the vote well before the passage of the 19th Amendment. The Wyoming Territory was the first to grant full civil rights to women on December 10, 1869. Our foremothers' fight for the vote began in the early 1800s. In the earliest stages of the movement, many women, disheartened and outraged by the practice of slavery, had joined the movement to abolish it. But like outspoken abolitionists Sarah and Angelina Grimke, these women became disillusioned when they discovered their opinions and efforts were often held in less esteem because of their gender. When Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, two women who would become linchpins in the development of the suffrage movement, attended the 1840 Anti-Slavery Convention in London and were refused seats on the basis of their gender, they decided to hold their own convention, a convention for women's rights. The convention in Seneca Falls, New York, was held on the 19th and 20th of July, 1848, and marked the first public proclamation of American women's demand for the right to vote. The Declaration of Sentiments, as it was called, was signed by 68 women and 32 men. Over the next decade, women held numerous other conventions and conferences on the issue of women's rights, while continuing their advocacy for slavery's end. The Civil War ended in April of 1865, and slavery was declared illegal with the 13th Amendment, adopted that December. The 14th Amendment, passed in July of 1868, granted full civil rights to former slaves. Following the close of the Civil War, a rift had begun to grow within the suffrage movement. At the center of the unrest was the 15th Amendment, which intended to ensure black men of the vote, but made no reference to gender. On one side of the dispute was Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who opposed black male suffrage without the same for women. They founded the National Woman Suffrage Association in 1869. On the other side of the dispute was Lucy Stone and Julia Ward Howe, who argued that suffragists should support the enfranchisement of black men. Stone and her husband Henry Blackwell founded the American Woman Suffrage Association in 1869. The next 20 years proved divisive for the two organizations. It wasn't until 1890 that Alice Stone Blackwell and Harriot Stanton Blatch urged their mothers' organizations to put their differences aside and reconcile, merging to form the National American Woman Suffrage Association, or the NAWSA. In the early 1890s, under the direction of organizer Carrie Chapman Catt, the organization helped Western women win campaigns, and by 1896, women had full voting rights in 4 states: Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, and Colorado. The suffrage movement lagged during the early 20th century, however, even while progressive-era reformers found success in ending corruption and enacting new laws to protect society's most vulnerable groups. No enfranchisement victories were won from 1896 until 1910, when women in Washington state re-won the vote they had lost with an 1887 court decision. California followed in 1911, revitalizing the movement by winning an exciting and close campaign. After that, woman suffrage had become a mass political movement, and the NAWSA would soon grow to some 2 million members. By 1916, the NAWSA had successfully convinced the Democratic and Republican parties to adopt women's suffrage within their platform. The combined pressure of the NAWSA's lobbying and the radical new National Women's Party, or the NWP, founded in 1916 by activists Alice Paul and Lucy Burns, led to President Wilson's agreement to push publicly for women's suffrage. The NWP vigorously picketed the White House in 1917 and demanded that women's suffrage be adopted as a constitutional amendment. Both the House of Representatives and the Senate finally voted to approve the 19th Amendment by the necessary 2/3 majority in 1919. But it still needed approval by 3/4 of state legislatures, which also meant 2 houses in each state. Suffragists undertook this arduous campaign to win ratification, and Tennessee was the last state, with its House approving the amendment by 1 vote. The 19th Amendment was added to the Constitution on August 26, 1920, and finally, after more than 7 decades of labor, American women won their vote.